Is it good?
Is what good?
Yep.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm ready. It's good. It's good.
It's good.
It's good. It's good.
All right.
Hello.
Hello, and how's it going?
Hello, and how's it going?
Hello, and
well. How's it going for you?
good. I'm here. I'm excited to talk.
To talk?
To talk and walk
People
the
just
talk.
really take talking for granted, I think. I mean, we should all just be excited to talk.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of
Maybe.
other creatures can't talk, and
Some
some people can't talk. And a long time ago, people just made weird noises.
Although if I had to have a disability, I think being mute would be the one I would go with. Not being able to hear or see would just be too much for me.
Yeah, being blind is probably one of the worst ones.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Especially if you go blind in your life.
Yeah.
I mean, being born blind, you don't know anything else.
Yeah.
So. But to go blind would be fucking terrifying.
Yeah. Everything's kind of geared around visual and auditory stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So being deaf is also a problem because being deaf means you're cut off from other people more than hearing people or than blind people, because blind people at least can talk. You know, they can have a mom and talk to her, and she can explain things and, explain the world and things like that. Whereas if a deaf person is born to hearing parents and the parents don't know sign language or are against it or something, then there's
That'd
nothing.
be awful.
There's nothing. There's
Fucking sign language is the worst. So you're not going to learn it. We're not going to do it. You can't hear me, so you don't even know what I'm saying.
So it's not going to matter. I'm just going to make that happen. So
you're just never going to be able to communicate.
I mean, there's like, I've studied sign language a bit, and there's people who are like in their 30s and 40s before they were first introduced to any kind of sign language.
So they just not communicate at all, or do they write?
No, they don't do any. I mean, there's very minimal hand gestures, and they just kind of live a solitary life. And this guy that I'm thinking about was late 30s, I believe, and he was like a construction, like just low-level labor jobs, and they would just, show up and just do the job. It's not like that complicated, so they would just do it, but there wasn't any kind of like talking or anything.
It'd be crazy to just not.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I guess, I can't even imagine being able to just not communicate in any method or
especially like any education requires communication and language, so they just don't get educated. So
Did he not go to school then?
No, he didn't go to school. He didn't do anything except for do work for people. And then later on, somebody who knew sign language, like a teacher or something, found them and started to teach them sign language. And it was just, from then on, this person was just using sign language.
I couldn't imagine the doors that would open.
You can't imagine.
That person just to be like, wait, what? I can fucking tell people what I want and how I feel. And it'd be crazy.
It'd be amazing. Yeah. I just watched a YouTube video about a guy who they developed this machine that would allow them to see for the first time. So they'd never seen, and he was married, and I think it was just kind of like a rudimentary kind of visual stimulus that it actually just like bypassed or like connected to their optical nerve or something. And he saw his wife for the first time at like 45 years old or something. And it was just like a really great video.
Yeah, I've seen videos like that where it's similar to that, where like people can hear for the first time because they get like cochlear implants and stuff. I can't. You would almost think that would put your brain in like this kind of state of overload, especially if you'd never seen anything before, and then suddenly all these because how would you even interpret that? You've never seen anything like that. I'm curious how that would like affect them. Like that'd be a very emotionally like kind of traumatic experience. Not necessarily like a negative traumatic experience, probably positive because you can see now. But it would be very like mind blowing, literally almost.
Yeah, it would be very disorienting. You'd be like, wow, what is all this stuff? But I think eventually it's natural, so you would just your mind would adapt.
Well, and if you've associated, feelings and
you'd have words.
Yeah, if you knew what things were, it wouldn't be so bad probably.
There's a YouTube channel, and it's this guy who's been blind his whole life, and he just explains what it's like to be blind. It's really, really good. I forget. I should have thought about it. I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but I'll look it up and I'll put it in the notes. But it's really good. He'll be like, this is what he'll like draw a picture and be like, what, people ask him questions and he'll just be like, and he'll try to draw like a face, and it's just like, it's terrible to us, but he's just like, there's my face. He's just kind of explaining it.
Because I wonder how because when you think of things, you imagine pictures in your mind of what that object, but if you don't know what anything looks like, I wonder what your brain would...
It's all just different senses. It would just be smells and touches, and I think shape. You would have an object kind of
probably wouldn't be as detailed. It would probably you're right. It'd probably be like
not detailed,
shape,
not color wise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like features and stuff. You probably wouldn't. You would just feel a face and just be like, well, it's kind of like oval shaped.
Yeah. And and bumpy and all that stuff, so with like, the nose and all that. So it's a really cool video or channel.
Yeah, you have to put. I'm curious. I want to see that now.
Yeah, I'll find it again. I was watching. They're like little 5-minute videos. I watched like a ton of them one day, and then I just stopped because I just was like, okay,
I'm done with you, Sarah. Time to move on.
Yes,
to my next victim on YouTube.
I victimize the YouTube channels by watching them.
Take advantage of it mercilessly and
then discard
it
like a
sad
used
and alone
condom.
I throw the thumbs down and then move on.
Yeah, just thumbs down everything. I can't imagine some videos I watch and there's like 13 thumbs down or whatever, like negatives, and it's not. There's not even any content. Like, it's not like a good or a bad video, or it's like only positive. Like, it's like this like inspirational like little 10-minute speech, and then there's a bunch of thumbs down. It's like, what don't you like about it? Yeah, that you would actually tell people.
The blind guy videos, he's like drawing pictures, and people are like, it's like, what are you? Why?
Yeah, why? What? You don't like that this exists?
Drawing sucked. There wasn't a lot of like a detail or anything. Yeah. I just didn't. I mean, I took art classes in high school, and that sucks.
Downgrade.
I'm an idiot too, by the way.
Yeah. It's just weird. I can get if it's like something controversial, like a political thing, like I don't agree with
video or.
Even that, like, I guess you could not like it, but it's like, I don't know. So there's so much stuff out there that
really didn't like it. You just wouldn't watch it. You just like,
turn it off.
I just like, I don't care about Miley Cyrus. I'm not gonna watch that. I'll just do something else.
Whatever. People are weird
bitches.
It's like on Facebook where there's only a like. So when somebody put something negative,
I think our suicide rate would be a lot higher if there was a dislike button.
Maybe
there are a lot of teenagers who take that stuff to heart. So
cyberbullying is an issue that I can't relate to because I never had to deal with it. I dealt with real bullying, like where I really got made fun of and people could really hurt me. But not to minimize, I'm sure cyberbullying is just as bad because they see these people at school and they spread rumors about them, and it's usually like sexual or it's usually I think it's sexual, like making fun of gay people or whatever, which is fucking horrible. So. It's just not something I really get.
Making fun of anybody is usually pretty horrible. Some people.
No, I mean,
I think some people
cyberbullying in general
like if you're
tend to be like that.
A dickhead and you treat people poorly, then people are totally gonna make fun of you, and they have every right to because you're not doing yourself any favors. But if you're not like bothering anybody or affecting anybody negatively, then there's no reason to make fun of somebody.
No, unless you're insecure.
I think what's interesting about bullying is it's really prominent. I feel like in high school, people make fun of you for the way you look. And then when you grow up, you're like, for me, I realized I was like, that doesn't even make sense because you have no effect on how you look, really. Like, you have you can affect your weight by how you take care of yourself, but like your facial structure, that's just genetics. There's nothing you can do about it. So it confounds me now that like kids make fun of somebody by the way. Oh, you got a big nose, like. You're totally right. My fucking dad has one. There's nothing I can do about that.
So what?
Sorry. Yeah. Maybe I'll get rich enough plastic surgery one day.
I don't know. It's just like a way for people to like create groups, like in groups, out groups. Kids just make fun of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure they see other people make fun of stuff or their parents make fun of stuff and are critical or whatever. It's just not very deep or important.
You're just not very intelligent if you have to resort to that.
I don't know. I mean, I made fun of kids at school, but I don't remember what for or what we did. I think me and my buddy used to just go around and just like make weird noises and use accents and mess with people and make fun of them for being like
gullible, falling for your trickery.
Yeah, whatever it was. We just were kind of douchebags.
I would joke around like that, but I don't think I really made fun of anybody unless I mean, there was like a couple of kids in school that I would make fun of with like my friends, but it was usually because they were like rude to us or they did something shitty, and so we would just basically, it was more like talking shit about them than like making fun of them, really.
Yeah.
But I was like always the kid that got picked on, so I was just like, oh, this sucks. I don't like the way this feels. Why would I do that to somebody?
I don't think I ever picked on anybody because of like a physical disability or because they were fat or something. It was usually like jocks. You know, I would make fun of them for being so obviously like so full of bravado, like, you know, in the way they wore like really nice clothes and stuff. Like, I don't know, just like because those were the ones who made fun of people, so I would make fun of them.
You're like the Robin Hood of bullied children.
Yeah, like I would steal from the rich and
steal their thunder and
give their depressed souls to the poor kids.
Look at this soul that I captured for you. It's all sad.
I remember in elementary school and in, I think not as much in high school, but in elementary school we had a lot of people who would make fun of, pick on, and even physically abuse mentally challenged people. Like I remember there was this girl who wore a helmet, you know, like that. Like she was nuts.
Tough.
She was mentally retarded, and I remember they were playing kickball, like you know, like baseball with a round kickball.
Yeah, I know kickball.
And I was checking because I don't remember if that's what it's called.
No, kickball. You're correct.
And I remember we were playing that, and I was playing, and a kid who I thought was my friend, or you know, at the time I didn't have any standards, so he was my friend. he fucking kicked the ball. I don't even think she was playing. I think she was just near where we were, and it's actually kind of hard to imagine this. It's really, really sad. He just kicked the ball at her face and knocked her down with a kickball in like 4th grade or something, or 5th grade.
Jesus.
And I remember watching that and everyone laughing and just being super like appalled and sad and not knowing what to do about it, because I was like, oh, these, like, we were all having fun for a little while, and then all of a sudden this became some sadistic like torture for this girl, and it was just really fucking sad. Like, and then I remember just being really, really pissed off at anybody who did that kind of stuff. And then I actually talked to her, you know, like I don't know if I talked to her, but I remember like kind of being friendly with her. And then there was another kid in another elementary school that I played soccer with, and he was developmentally challenged, and I remember at first he was really bad off and he had a hard time talking and moving. And I remember playing soccer with him, just me and him, while everybody else was doing stuff during recess in like literally like 3rd or 4th grade. And I saw him years later when I was probably 20 and he was like 15 or 16, and he was like, he could talk, he like wore normal clothes, he didn't have a helmet anymore. It was really, really cool to see this kid who was like really bad off. And I remember having friends all throughout school that were those kind of because I was in such a small school, there were only a few mentally challenged people, and I remember I was always very friendly with them. I think it's because my mom was a special ed teacher for 20 years, so I grew up in those classrooms with these people, and they were never scary. They were never like something that I thought was funny. You know, it was always like I've interacted with them enough that like they were just people, you know, and I got that they weren't like me, you know, intellectually. So I always tried to befriend them somewhat, as much as I, you know, had time.
I was kind of the same myself, but I think it was mostly because I, like, through a lot of my, especially not until like high school, but through most of my schooling, I was always like made fun of and bullied. And I remember like gravitating towards people who were like slower or kind of challenged, because they didn't like make fun of people, because they didn't understand really what that even, like, why you would do that.
They had no reason to.
And so I remember kind of doing the same thing, like just being friendly with them and like hanging out with them and stuff, because they didn't give me shit and they were fun to be around. What's cool about a lot of people who are handicapped like that is that they're always like happy typically. Like they don't really, they have a completely different outlook on the world than us. Like people take everything for granted, and I think that people typically who are handicapped like that, they just appreciate everything and they don't care. Like as long as they just feel good most of the time, unless people are fucking kicking balls in their face or something. But
even when I worked,
I'm just interrupting you. And even like Derek, the guy who comes into the store, every once in a while, he's autistic, but he is such a blast to like chat with. He's always happy, and he took a really long time to warm up. Like he doesn't like strangers, and he worked at a Ross that I had started working at, and I remember it just took months before he would even talk to me. And then now it's like after we worked there for a couple of years, like we would chat every day, and then he like comes in now and sees me, and we get to talk, and it's just fun. It's just cool to be around somebody who's just happy and who doesn't like complain about anything really. They're just appreciative.
I think they're genuinely interested in the conversation. Like they're genuine, like they're like, you gave them attention, they give you attention. It might not be super intellectual, you know, like about politics or anything, but it's genuine and it's nice, and they really do appreciate it. I think that they appreciate it a lot more than random people who just kind of come in and just blabber, you know, blah 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 blah. I mean, they might not have the best in the way of communication skills, but you're taking all that into consideration, and it's usually pretty pleasant. I remember when I worked at the theater, there was like a 2-week, they did a big job fair, and there's this 2-week training period where we didn't do anything but sit in rooms, and we had like schedules. It was like a school kind of situation, and I remember there was a guy there who had got in there, but he had like I don't want to call it a handler, but like a social worker who helped him, but they weren't allowed to be there for that during the school period part, because it was like part of his job. He was getting paid to do it, and he had to be able to show that he could be on his own. And I remember I just helped him the whole time get through the whole thing, and he worked there for like 2 years, and he was like my buddy. He was like a friend. He was like, I mean, we really like, he enjoyed seeing me, and I was happy to help. And I think you have to have a lot of patience, and I don't have a lot of patience for a lot of things, but I think that
I think it's easier to have patience when you can understand kind of where they're coming from.
Right.
Like, you know, going in that it's going to be different than a normal interaction. I feel like it's easy to have less patience with like normal people. Quote, because you know that they're intelligent enough to understand everything that's going on. They're just either being obtuse on purpose or difficult on purpose. And so I think it's easier to have less patience with people who don't exhibit handicaps. Really dancing around and using some colorful words.
No, I think I think we've both been pretty sensitive to that.
But no, it's cool. And even like, I remember being in just like shitty moods too at work, and every time Derek came up and said hi, like he had this big smile on his face, and immediately I just wouldn't feel like I wouldn't be mad anymore. I was like, oh hey man, what's up?
Because like, you can't be mad at him. Like you can't be in that interaction and not be like, oh, the world is not that fucking serious. Like this is,
but yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. I just remember that. I don't know. It sounds like I'm saying like I'm better
You're
than
like
other people, but I really did.
Mary for handicapped children.
I really tried to be helpful and open to those kind of people.
Yeah, I do even now. Like if I ever,
I try to be now.
Like just sometimes like you'll see them wandering around the mall, kind of lost looking, and it's just like,
say hi.
Hey, what's up? Do you need help with anything? Or
just give them like
hanging out.
Just give them the respect of being a human being. They know that if somebody's looking at them or paying attention to them, and most people will avert their eyes. They'll walk away. They'll try to pretend like they're not there, or they'll talk down to them or whatever. And it's just like they're just people. You don't know them.
I try not to. I feel like
sometimes
if I'm looking at them and I feel like I'm staring and then they look at me, I'll like look away because I feel like I'm being rude. But I try to just look back at them and like smile and like wave or something, just to acknowledge them. But I feel like sometimes I'm like worried that they think that I'm just like judging them and staring at them awkwardly.
Yeah, and I'm sure they get that a lot. But I'm sure that depending on their level of awareness, they know that they look a certain way, so they're not going to be super shocked. The issue is when you give them a face of disgust or you ignore them. I think that's worse than if you just kind of acknowledge, like, oh yeah, this is the way you look. It doesn't mean anything. I'm just happening to notice it because it's apparent and it's visual. I had a person come in and they were in a wheelchair, like a permanent wheelchair. Like they were never getting out of the wheelchair, and they weren't mentally handicapped as far as I could tell. and we had this they were super interesting, and we had this great conversation about video games and the way that something will like sell a lot of money at first, but not a lot of money after a while because it's not really that good. We were talking about hype in video games, and then he recommended a YouTube channel, which was Game Theory, and it's where they go off on the like realistic meanings and the psychological underpinnings of like video game plots and storylines and things, like that Binding of Isaac game that we played.
Yeah, that game is very interesting from like a story standpoint. It's very weird.
So they analyzed that like for 15 minutes, and it was awesome. Like a really in-depth analyzation of that game, and it was really cool that, you know, because I was open enough to start a conversation with him, and he was totally able to have a conversation. I think a lot of people would just kind of give them a minimal amount of attention and then, you know, ignore them for the most part. I mean, maybe not. I don't know, but I was even hesitant because I don't want to like assume that they're even able to have a full conversation.
I think that's the trick too, where
so you kind of have to.
People sometimes probably don't talk to them a whole lot because they
don't get over their head.
Well, yeah, and you don't know like something that may seem trivial that you say to you might be a big deal to them and maybe upset them, and so I feel like sometimes people steer clear because they just don't. It's not that they don't want to talk to them; it's that they just don't want to run the gamut of like offending them on accident or upsetting them, and so it's like you keep your interactions to a minimal because you just don't want to, you know, it's almost like you're gambling the whole time you're talking to them, like the wrong word might, you know, upset them or something.
Yeah.
I felt that way with some people sometimes where I'm like trying to help them and I'm just like, I'm carefully choosing my words because I'm just like, I don't know, I don't want to upset them or anything. So
I try to do it. Like, because you want to prejudge everybody who you interact with that you don't know. And then a lot of times I have to stop myself and be like, my prejudgment doesn't matter at all. Yeah. Like the fact that I'm trying to figure them out before I even talk to them is stupid. I should just talk to them like I would anybody else and see where it goes and just try to, you know, interact in a natural way instead of trying to preset what I'm going to do. You know, like I'm not going to say this or that. I don't know. But, yeah. I don't know how you got.
Sorry, I hope all this coughing isn't coming through. I'm recovering from a cold, so...
Yeah, you've been sick.
I'm trying
you
my
seem
head
all
away.
right now.
Yeah,
you
I feel fine.
Decent.
Just have a little bit of a cough.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, I remember a while back I had a fucking horrible time on the podcast. I couldn't barely talk.
I remember that when you were my brother.
Yeah. So why don't we do these words?
Do these words. Alrighty. Let's see.
What's your word?
My word is magniloquent.
That is very eloquent.
I know. So it's magniloquent. It's spelled Magniloquent. Magniloquent. You want to take a gander as to the definition?
Yeah, you even fucking told me earlier, and I don't remember.
Oh, yeah?
It was something like. What was it? Like obtuse or like rude or something?
Kind of. It's pompous or boastful. So it's an adjective to describe somebody who is kind of pompous or bombastic.
Bombastic.
It also means speaking or expressing in a lofty or grandiose style.
Lofty or grandiose style. Like, oh, floaty, floaty. That was a terrible example of that, but
it actually entered in the English language in the mid 1600s, and is found its roots in the Latin word magniloquus, which meant to speak grandly.
Oh wow! Well, yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking of the word orator the other day, which is not my word. I always come up with a better word when I'm talking.
Damn it! No, really, it's actually my word.
Because back in the day, before there was recordings, that was like a really interesting thing. You would go like to the town square, you would go to a church, or you know, and people would just like be good at talking, just good at explaining things and talking, and then so I'm sure that's, you know, something that they would describe back then. Now we just have so much variety of speakers and speeches and speech classes, and it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a word I'm going to use to make fun of shitty people without it sounding shitty. Because you could just say, oh, that guy was really magniloquent.
It sounds good.
But it doesn't sound bad, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I don't think it necessarily is bad.
Pompous or boastful isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just probably depends on the circumstance.
Yeah, pompous is bad. Boastful isn't necessarily.
Yeah, bad. I mean, if you're boasting about something awesome that you really actually did, then that's cool. Yeah. But
as long as you're not lying too much about it.
Also, I mean, that's if you actually did it and you're boasting about it, then
I like bombastic.
Bombastic, that's a good word too.
Yeah,
I actually almost went with that, and then I was like, I don't know, I've never heard magniloquent before. That sounds nice.
It's more more syllables.
More syllables. Yeah, it's just longer.
It's
I don't
bigger,
know.
And it's got a QU in it. It would get you more points.
Bombastic just sounds like a bomb.
It sounds like a Jamaican thing.
Blow up.
Yeah. Kind of. Sounds like something you wouldn't want to say in an airport.
No.
Mr. Bombastic.
Is so bombastic. Whoa. What did you just say?
Yeah.
My bag is bombastic.
Your bomb is...
Bomb.
My bomb is
My bomb's bombastic.
My bomb is bagbastic. Why would a bag be bombastic?
Maybe it's just like... Bomb. Well, if it's like grandiose in style, maybe it's just like got a bunch of little rhinestones in it. It's really flashy.
Oh, yeah, that would be. That would be hella bombastic. Damn.
Too bombastic.
Isn't that a Jamaican thing? Mr. Bombastic.
I don't know.
Yeah, man.
I know very little about the Jamaican peoples.
The Jamaicans. Cool. Nice
they
word.
Smoke a lot of weed, right? That's
what I just heard is that they do. It's a huge part of the culture.
There we go. That's
but
what I know about
it has been illegal in their country until just recently.
That's interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Rebels down there in the South.
Rebel music is like a huge thing in Jamaican music. Is they call it like rebel music because I think there's a big like culture differences between like the people, like the government and the regular people in Jamaica, because it's such a like an island. It's very small. It's island. You know, they can do what they want, but the government still like gives them a hard time about stuff. I don't know that much about it, but I thought it was interesting that marijuana is legal there.
He was like, that guy's not right at all. Like,
no,
Jamaica's just like not an island. It's a peninsula.
Jamaica's definitely a fucking island. The Jamaican Islands. I know about it. Don't you know that?
Everything I know about Jamaicans I learned from Futurama.
Yeah, from the
from the doctor.
The doctor, yeah. He's not a doctor. He's a accountant.
Oh, that's right.
He's the notary guy.
I always want to say he's a chiropractor because he there's like a few episodes where he's really good at doing the
the
mom.
No, it's not the mamba. No. It's the thing where you
have to go under the bar.
Yeah, you go under the bar.
I can't think of what it's called right now. I'm totally blanking right now.
Oh man, that's stupid. That is such a dumb.
That's gonna come to me in like 10 minutes, and then it's gonna be too late.
We can bring it up. Okay, next word. My word.
Your word. Joseph's word
is ambiguity.
Ambiguity.
And one of the reasons why I like it is because I've been using the word disambiguous a lot. You know what? We may have done this word before because this is a word I like using a lot, and it's possible.
I don't know.
And I like that you can.
Like 15 episodes ago, so does it really matter?
It doesn't matter. Who cares? Nobody's whatever. But I like it because you can use it in so many different words. Like you can say disambiguous, you can say ambiguity, you can say ambiguous, you can say unambiguous, you can say.
I think just ambiguous is really the part that you like.
It could be.
Just BIGOUS, the biguous.
It's the biguousness of it because it's so big and useful. And I think clarity is important in communication, so being unambiguous is something I'm always like, this is too ambiguous. We're not very precise here. I don't get... clarity to me is like, I would rather describe something way more than I need to and make it very clear. Not to diminish the intelligence of the person I'm talking to, but because I don't want them to be like, to do it in a different... It's easy to misinterpret things. And I misinterpret things all the time because somebody doesn't give me enough fucking information.
Well, I repeat myself a lot when I talk because I'm worried that like you were saying, not that the person's an idiot, but that I'm just trying to drive home my points, and I want to make sure that I got my point in while I was speaking. So I feel like I end up repeating myself, even though because I'm afraid that I didn't make something perfectly clear. So I do the same thing. I like to be very precise when I'm talking, so that people know exactly what I want.
Yeah, I just want to be, like, if I'm training or teaching, I act like the person knows nothing about anything, and that way I'm not assuming so much, and then they are afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, he's assuming I know this, but I don't, but I don't want to look dumb.
So I usually tell people, I'm just like, if I say a bunch of stuff that you already know, just bear with me. Like, I'm just going to go through this whole
it's not because you don't know it. It's because I'm making sure.
So just listen and funnel out the stuff you already know, I guess.
For sure.
In which case, they're going to funnel out what they don't know, because people probably don't know how to pick things very well and choose what's important and what's not.
I don't know.
Probably depends on the person, I guess.
Depends on... that's part of intelligence, I think, is to really comprehend and listen, and be able to apply.
Speaking of intelligence, I've been reading a lot lately about emotional intelligence.
Ooh, yeah, that's cool.
I was actually started reading about it from a Harvard business review article.
Yeah,
you had
HBR.org.
Yep. Which is a really cool site if you're interested in learning more about business or leadership practices and things like that, creating a good work environment. So I've been reading a lot of it lately because it's just interesting. It's funny. I used to not care about business at all until I started getting into retail, and then becoming like a manager in retail, and then now all this stuff's interesting to me because I think it's because it's things that I can use on a daily basis. To improve myself and coworkers and stuff. But one of the big articles I was reading was about emotional intelligence. It's like one of the 5 key pillars to being a good leader.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is mostly having to deal with being empathetic and learning how to speak to people in a manner that you're not belittling them or talking down to them. It has a lot to do with empathy and trying to understand how people feel, and then having conversations with them to understand what your goal is, what they want, how they're going to get that goal. So it's been fun reading about that, because I've had a lot of bosses that just you don't hit whatever goal or sale or whatever, or something they want you to hit, and then they're just kind of like, oh, you didn't do this, why didn't you do that? Do better. And then that's the end of the conversation, and you don't have any room for development or to put your own 2 cents into it. So it's cool to read something about how to have conversations with people and understand them and make them feel important and work together to come up with solutions and stuff. So I don't know if you've read any of those or not.
I haven't read any articles lately on emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is obviously a huge important aspect of life in general, and I think that empathy is obviously a huge part of it. You have to kind of put yourself in the other person's shoes and see how they're seeing things, and trying to understand where the miscommunication happened, or trying to make it about understanding each other's expectations as opposed to just dictation, just like a dictator, just you do this, that's it. I think business is about collaboration and about being flexible enough to realize that there are lots of solutions to different problems. But I've been in business since I'm 19 and working with bosses and working with employees and hiring and firing, and I still don't know that much, and I've been reading stuff lately from that website as well. But I kind of I studied business in college. I got a minor in business, so but they don't necessarily talk a lot about the day-to-day stuff in college that I received. So communication is hugely important, and and being emotionally intelligent also means emotionally intelligent of yourself.
Self-awareness is the other big thing. I forgot to mention that earlier, but they were talking about that. Self-awareness is huge. They were talking about how people who are really good with operational stuff and are really intelligent a lot of times don't necessarily make a good leader because they don't have very good social skills or self-awareness or empathy.
That's tough.
And so, whereas people who struggle with operational stuff or aren't, they don't have a fucking PhD in business or something, can be fantastic leaders because they just understand people.
Right.
And I think in business, people it's the most important element of business, because you can't even have business without people and people buying your stuff and whatever. And so it was really interesting to just read and learn and study, and I feel like I'm typically very good with people. I'm very good at talking to people and communicating and being very empathetic and understanding. So it's cool to read about and learn new ways to improve on that, because you got to find that balance, like especially if you're a manager, of being like stern to get your point across, but at the same time being empathetic. Because if you just let people, roll over you and continue to, just take advantage of you because you're trying to give them a break, at a certain point you do have to kind of put your foot down and be a little harder, I guess.
It depends on what your goals are.
Yeah.
You have to really understand what your goals are and what barriers there are to achieving them, and be, have people around that are open to talking about it and all that. This is pretty vague, so it's hard to
I'm being able to motivate people and stuff.
Motivation is the hardest thing. Yeah.
Because positive reinforcement is what people respond to best.
People respond to.
If you can find a way to motivate them and encourage them, they're going to do a lot better job than you just talking at them and then belittling them, I guess.
It depends on. I think people come from you can either be super dictatorial and authoritative and dominant, or you can be way not dominant enough and not assertive enough. So you have to be in the middle. You have to be assertive, but you also have to be open to people's ideas. You have to be calm, and you have to be knowledgeable at what you're doing, and you have to understand variables. So if you don't. And then you also, you have to understand that the person might also have just had a kid, or just had a parent pass away, or just had, certain things happening in their lives, and that matters for no one actually drops everything at the door when they go to work.
I love that as like a thing at work. We should leave everything at home. Like,
all that is an unempathetic way to say that I don't care about your feelings. It's a way to say, I don't care that you're having an emotional problem that's going to affect your thinking throughout the rest of the day. When really, if you just acknowledge it at the beginning, you just go, hey, you look really depressed. Are you okay? Or whatever. And the person goes, yeah, I'm just having this thing happen. I'm sorry. I'm going to do my best. But if you never really get to the point where you would just acknowledge it and say, oh, I get that. Hey, if you need to take a break halfway through the day, an extra 10-minute break during the day, I'm okay with that. Let's try to, focus on the customers. You have to be kind of aware of that situation, and you can easily, make the best out of bad situations when it comes to emotional regulation at work or whatever. But just by saying, just leave it at the door, I don't want to hear about it, is just kind of these are people you work with every day. They, a lot of people become friendly with their staff because of proximity and because they actually like them and all that.
It's almost like depending on how close you get, it's almost like having a second family. They're people that you spend, 20 plus hours with every week. So,
and as a manager or type of coach, you rely on them. They do more work than you do. Your job is to get them to do good work, and you have to do that by I've written pages of these are things that I don't like in a manager. These are the things that I think a leader